One of my biggest takeaways from living in this hospital for more than 200 days through my wife's heart transplant journey is that faith is not static. You're going to have to choose it, and you're going to have to contend for it repeatedly. My wife was a near impossible match for any organ transplant whatsoever. And so leading up to our miraculous offer for a heart, the doctors here pulled out some crazy stuff to try and solve her heart failure, anticipating that we likely wouldn't ever get a heart offer. One of the things they did was, one day they took her down to the OR, opened up her chest, and took a stainless steel pump and sewed it to her heart. And they closed her chest. And that pump was supposed to pump blood away from her heart to the rest of the body when the heart was too weak to do so on its own. Anyway, she got this surgery. She came back to the ICU, and I was waiting in her room. And of course, she looked rough coming back. She was sedated afterwards and was going to remain sedated through the night. She also had these big old chest tubes sticking out of her chest that are supposed to drain blood from inside the chest where the surgery happened. They don't want blood coagulating and clotting up in here. They want it draining out those tubes. So that way you can also measure how much she's bleeding. Is it slowing down as we get further and further away from the surgery? All that. So anyway, I was told the surgery went good. We're gonna take care of her tonight. Don't worry, she's sedated. There's nothing you can do. Go get some good sleep. Go home, go to a hotel, just get away from here, go be at peace. And so I said, okay, great. I'll stay next door at the hotel. Then when I got to see her the next morning, I knew something was wrong the second I saw her, the second I got eyes on her, because she was swollen and puffy, but in a weird way and in all the wrong places. Up her shoulders to her neck and her face and her head, everything was swollen. And it kept getting worse throughout the day. She just kept getting more and more puffy. And by midday, she was also looking a bit bluish or purpley, like almost this purple hue to her skin. Started to look like a blueberry from here up. And the doctor pulled me aside and said, look, this is an internal bleed. That's what's going on. She's filling up with blood in her chest, and that's why she's turning purple. It's why she's puffy. Also, the drainage tubes, the bleeding has not slowed down coming out of her chest. There's clearly a leak inside, and blood is just running out. We're having to replace blood that she's losing. So we need to go find where this is. Did all the imaging. Imaging showed nothing. So that afternoon, a surgeon came to me and pulled me aside, said, look, we've got one option. It's a Hail Mary. This is very dangerous. You need to be aware of the gravity of this situation. All right. This is do or die time, quite literally. All right. Here's the plan. Said the rest of today and tonight, our team is going to do whatever it takes to keep her as stable as possible and alive until tomorrow's surgery. Tomorrow, mid-morning, we're going to pick her up. We're going to take her down to the OR, and we're going to open up her chest, and we're going to go look for this leak. Like, we're going to go hunt a leak, which is incredibly dangerous. There is no guarantee, and it will be very difficult to see where a leak is coming from. It's a mess in there. It's a bloody mess. We're going to find a leak, right? And so if we can find a leak, if there's only one, there may be more than one. We're hoping for one. If we can find leaks, we will close them or do our best to close them. Then we'll send her back to her room to recover. We'll pray she makes it through the night. Or she won't make it out of the OR at all. And this is a Red Sea moment. So as a father and a husband, they encouraged me to do what I needed to do, potentially have our girls come up and say what they needed to say to their mom, which I ended up doing. But they said, look, we're going to take care of her tonight. We encourage you to go stay away again. It'll be busy in here, but I refused. I couldn't leave her. I couldn't bring myself to leave her. And so I remember laying down on the couch that night in her room, just 5 feet from her. And it was wild, man. I mean, usually in the ICU, you get some quiet. They'll turn out the lights. When the nurses walk out, they usually close the doors so you can get a little sleep. They might leave you alone for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, sometimes maybe even an hour without coming in. But it wasn't that way that night. I mean, lights all the way on, doors wide open to the room, bells and whistles going off constantly on all the machines, and just urgent footsteps from nurses constantly back and forth. Now, I can sleep through that. It had been a number of weeks. I can sleep through noise. I can sleep through, bells and whistles. I can sleep through the lights on, the nurse activity. I can sleep through all of that now. But what I couldn't sleep through was listening to what the nurses were saying to one another. And they weren't saying anything negative or nasty or anything. It was just, she hasn't slowed down. She bled this much blood. I need another unit. And I started to realize that Melissa was bleeding to death 5 feet from me. She was bleeding out. And they kept replacing more and more blood. You could look at the glass window in the door where the nurse was marking down how many units of blood they had given her. And that night, they gave her enough blood. They replaced enough blood to fill 2 to 3 of her. And so after a couple hours not being able to sleep, I asked another nurse, do you have anywhere you can put me? Like, I can't sleep in it. I cannot hear this. Can you have a closet, anything dark? Just, I need to sleep for a couple of hours. My kids are likely coming up tomorrow. I need to sleep. So there was an empty room. It was going to be empty for the next few hours till the next patient was scheduled to show up. They put me on the couch in there, and it was quiet. No machines, no nothing. I was alone, and it was dark. And all night was all out war. It was war inside of me. It was war over what I would believe. It was war over what I would expect. Up until this point, I had been operating in so much faith and confident expectation of God's deliverance. I remember speaking words confidently. I mean, even here on the internet, just going, she will walk out. She will walk out. God will meet us. We will get through this. I fully expected. I believe God showed it to me. And I had walked in that with so much purpose and confidence for weeks on end. But I had also not experienced one of these moments where I was really up against it and going, the reality is setting in. And I remember laying there and things began to play in my mind, starting to picture a potential future without her. Starting to ask questions like, how are my kids going to grow up without a mom? Am I supposed to start over at 41 years old? Am I about to lose my best friend I've been married to for 20 years and with since I was 17? And I begin to feel sorrow and despair setting in, taking hold of me and starting to control the way I thought. And I started to feel my expectation shift from one of hope and faith and a future to one of doubt, despair, and death. And I felt like in that moment, God asked me something. And I felt a very strong question. It was, are you sorrowful over what is happening? Or are you sorrowful over something that has not even happened yet that you are counting on because you do not believe in me? And I realized in that moment, I had to fight for what I would believe. And I had to make a choice. There was a song that had been speaking to me for weeks on end. I put it on repeat. I put it on my phone and I set it up on the windowsill and I just let it play. I just let it wash over me. Then I began to sing the words of the song. And then I began to speak words of truth and confident hope and faith in the future that God would be giving us. I had to fight for my faith. I had to reconvince myself for hours on end of what I chose to believe. This is a choice. You can operate in faith or you can operate in fear. You can operate in faith or you can operate in doubt. You get to choose. And if you are going through something where you feel your faith waning, understand that faith does not just happen. You've got to feed it. You've got to fight for it. You've got to protect it. Faith does not just happen on its own. You must choose it and you must contend for it. That means to fight for it. I cannot even begin to count how many times throughout this journey I have had to convince myself and reconvince myself again and again and again of what I believe and what I expect and what I know God can do and who I know He is. If you are going through this and you are wrestling with this, understand you are not alone. It is not you being weak. You are going to have to fight for it over and over and over again. Faith is not static. You've got to choose it. And you've got to choose it in every moment. That's why we got to be so careful with the thoughts that we think, with the things we envision, with the future that we picture, with the words that we speak, because our ears hear those words. The power of life and death is bound up in the tongue. What we hear, especially out of our own mouths, we tend to believe. That's why it's so important to curate an environment for the growth of faith. Your faith is not static. You're going to have to choose it, and you're going to have to contend for it. And you're going to have to contend daily.